What's up, y'all? Thanks for stopping by the Search T channel. In this video, I'll be talking about Stan and Ollie, the film about Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy during what you can say is the last hurrah when it came to their careers. They embarked on a European tour, going to these different playhouses and small theaters, and this was after some time, after their last film, Way Out West, where there was a contract dispute. He was fired, Stan Laurel, and Oliver stayed on. And it was because Stan wanted to have more control, more kind of ownership of their films, and Hal Roach would not stand for it and pretty much said that you're under contract and I can't do that for you. And we see it kind of pan forward 16 years, and then they're together again and they're doing the European tours. As they're touring and they're doing these small theaters and these small houses, they realize that they're not in the big houses like they thought they would. They're Bernard Delfont was the one that was managing their careers and pretty much booking these places. And gotta say that Danny Houston, he played Hal Roach. He did a good job. He's a guy who we've seen in American Horror Story. He was also in Wonder Woman. And their wives, played by Shirley Henderson, played Lucille Hardy, and Nina Arianda played Ida Cateva Laurel. And the supporting cast really did a great job of really just working alongside both Steve Coogan, who plays Stan Laurel, and John C. Reilly, who played Oliver Hardy. And I looked up their not credentials, but I looked up their the awards that they may have gotten or nominated for these roles, and they did Film Critics Awards, and John C. Reilly was nominated for a Golden Globe, and Steve Coogan was nominated for a BAFTA and some other awards, and they won those awards, but the Golden Globe didn't go to John C. Reilly, and I'm so surprised that he didn't win, wasn't nominated for an Oscar. But maybe it's because this movie was such a small film and they didn't push it like they should have. They may have tried to, get some copies out there to the Academy for them to watch, but I'm surprised. This movie should have easily gotten 8 nominations. Director, definitely. Best film, best actor. They may have even shared the best actor, Oscar nomination, or give John C. Reilly the best actor and give the supporting to, Steve Coogan. But regardless of that, it's just the way that they did their roles, through the ups and downs and through the threat of them both just out and out just giving up on their partnership. We see Oliver, his health is deteriorating, and we see how he is just pushing himself through, trying to just get himself to the performances and then getting back to his hotel room. He had bad knees, and it was a result of, I guess it was diabetes that he had, but he was taking a lot of pills, and then when his wife finally got there, she was able to kind of monitor him a little better, because he was kind of being kind of a bad boy, if you will, in the sense that he wasn't, he was taking his medication, but then he was drinking, he wasn't supposed to, and he was kind of doing things, pushing himself a little too hard, and she was very worried about him. And definitely loved him. He even said one time he's all, why are you with me? I'm just a fat guy, whatever, a fat man. And she's all like, shh, you said you're my fat man. As if to say, I'm quiet with that stuff. I love you for who you are. And that's beautiful. That really was an amazing, touching thing. She loved Oliver regardless, of whatever kind of shortcomings he had or whatever kind of within him. I guess he's thinking he's not attractive because he was big, he was fat. But at the same time, it's like he was a little adorable guy, very charismatic, very charming. And, so she was taking care of him. And what happened was he had a heart attack because they were doing what you call a bathing beauty contest, and they were going to announce the winner. And Stan gets up on stage and is going, hey, come on, hurry up, stop wasting your time, or stop taking your time getting up here, stop fooling around. And then he just falls face forward onto the steps, and he brings him back to the hotel. And his wife is a little bit mad at Stan because she's like, why didn't you bring him to the hospital? And then later on we kind of see that he's in bed, he's laid up in bed, and this is after intentions that happened between the two, because their real feelings came out during an after performance party, and they both just started wailing at each other, started just laying into each other about past things and stuff that caused them to break up. And it was really a pretty tough scene to watch, because you could definitely see that they both loved each other, but at the same time they couldn't stand being around each other just because of the stuff that happened in the past. We have Oliver, who, because Stan was fired, now Oliver had to continue on. Hardy had to continue on, so they gave him a new partner, and he was Harry Langdon, a very, very well-known actor of that time, and he was played by Richard Kent. And it was just him, it was just him, and he really didn't talk or anything, but he just stood in for the character. He just played the character that way. And they were doing a film, Zenobia, and that came up later on. Stan was like, you teamed up with someone else, and Oliver was like, you are the one that got fired. I am still contracted. I had still had to work. And that's true, even though I can understand what Stan was doing, but it's like it caused that problem. And then again, later on we see the fact that they're about to sign a major contract, and then what happens? Oliver didn't show up. So kind of went, both ways. It kind of was like, well, you can't, just say that Stan did that and then he did the very same thing. And so these guys ended up, breaking up. And then we see, of course, like I said, 16 years later, they're on a European tour, going all over Europe, London and Ireland and all that. But then when we see what happened with Oliver having the heart attack and being laid up in bed, we see that there still is that love and that respect between the two. And then Stan even got in bed with Laurel, laid up against him, put his hand on his hand, and they are sharing a very, very tender moment. And these guys were like brothers. They loved each other to death. You know what I mean? I can just imagine, and of course we didn't see him die in the movie, but he would die. It was like 1953 to 54, and 57 was when Oliver Hardy died, and Stan Laurel died. It was like 1965, and you could definitely, none of us saw it, but you can just imagine what Stan Laurel went through when Oliver died. Truly sad. It's a truly sad thing to think about, that you lose your best friend, your partner of so many years. And the one moment that I loved is when they were doing Way Out West, and they were doing the routine to At the Ball That's All, when they're doing that dance, and you see in the backdrop there's like a western backdrop behind them, and then you know, the guys were singing on the steps while they're dancing, and they did it literally move for move, step for step. I mean, John C. Reilly and Steve Coogan really did an awesome job as recreating that scene. And it was amazing, and that's like my favorite routine from them, you know. And then and then at the end, they sang, it was like what happened was he was going to leave. Stan was going to leave, and his wife Ida just said, you know what, just tell them that we're leaving for Ireland, that you're going to continue the tour. That way they don't know that, But then what happened was Oliver was told that not to perform because he was going to he's not going to be up to it, and he might make him more sick. Not Ida, but his wife leaves. Oliver's wife leaves to go get something. When she comes back, she notices that his pajamas and all that were laid out on the bed. So she kind of definitely knows that Oliver is going to go and beat up a Stan. And then we see that scene where Stan opens the door. He thinks it's a bellboy, and the wife just says, give him 5 shillings. And he's like, all I don't have much, I only have this. He opens the door, and there's Oliver, and Oliver goes, you didn't think I was going to leave, did you, Stan? And they decide to do the act together instead of him Stan, because Stan he canceled the performance, and all these audiences were waiting and stuff like that, and he just did not want to go on with the other guy that replaced him, Nabi Cook, he was a up and coming comic at that time and very popular. So they thought, Hal Roach thought, it was a good idea, put them together. Or was it Bernard Delphine? I believe it was Bernard Delphine, because Hal Roach was the one that put Oliver with Harry Langdon earlier. Now the last performance that they had was pretty tough on Oliver. You can see he was in pain, and the thing is was that Stan wanted to just dance. I mean, not dance. He just wanted to sing. We don't have to do the dance. And that dance was, of course, the At the Ball That's All was the dance that they did. And you can see he was in pain and doing the up kick move that he would usually be doing, and he was kind of wincing, but he was really just a trooper and really just worked through the pain. And he was have that old adage, as the show must go on, So of course he was going to not let his partner down, and didn't want to let his wives and even the audience down that night, And it was truly touching. I love how they were, recreating a number of classic scenes and classic songs. I mean, the whole thing with the hospital scene where his leg is up in traction, and then somehow Stan has the rope around his arm, and then when he would reach to go get him something, his leg would go up. The weight that kind of holds it down, kind of like a balance weight, would hit him on the head. And it was really just so much fun to watch these scenes recreated. They did the Trail to Lonesome Pine. They recreated that song. They did Shine On, Harvest Moon. And I believe I've heard that John C. Reilly does sing, and I believe he sang the song. It wouldn't surprise me if he did, but I think he did his own singing in Walk Hard, that parody of of Johnny Cash, that movie. I don't know if it was a parody of Johnny Cash, but it was kind of like a play on like his music and all that stuff. He was like a character, kind of like him, but it was really great, the way he sang, and it's just exactly like, side by side. It's exactly the same, and the movie had me smiling the whole time, and near tears at the end. It's like the movie had me really just misty-eyed, and it was really just it's sad, just to know, that not too long after he was going to be gone, Oliver Hardy. And this film really was just an amazing piece of work. It really was an amazing just tribute to Laurel and Hardy. And those of you who are subscribed to me, if you have not even seen this film, please watch it. Those of you who watched this video just by happenstance, you just saw the thumbnail and wanted to listen, give it a try. The movie really was just an incredible, like I said before, tribute to these two. And it was really honest, and it really showed them in an incredible light. They really just wanted to show, they didn't sugarcoat stuff. They didn't show just all the good times. They showed the fact that these guys they really hated each other at one point, and they really didn't really want to be around each other. It's pretty much Stan said at one time that he loved him, and Oliver was like, no, you didn't love me, you just loved Laurel and Hardy. Pretty tough to take, that's a pretty tough words to come from someone who you thought was your partner. But in the end, that these two did make up, and they realized that they truly needed each other. And it's just an amazing piece of work. I mean, from the director to the actors to the production staff and everybody that worked on this film, it's just an amazing accomplishment, And at the film end, as the movie ended, there was an epilogue that revealed that the tour was the last time they worked together. Ollie's health continued to deteriorate after the tour, leading to his death in 1957. Stan, devastated by his friend's death, refused to work without his partner and went into retirement. Dying 8 years later in 1965, Stan continued to write sketches for Laurel and Hardy in the last 8 years of his life. So even though he lost Oliver, Stan was loyal to him even after his partner's death. And the last 8 years of Stan's life, he continued writing material for Laurel and Hardy. And don't know if he just did that just to keep himself, with the feeling of Laurel and Hardy were still around, and he was just writing stuff for the time they get back together, he just had that in his mind so that it would keep him going. And I wonder if any of that was ever done, any of his writings, or he just wrote it just to write it, just to keep his mind occupied and to keep Oliver in his life, as if they're, because in the movie, a movie that they were going to do that never was going to happen, he was always writing scenes, working out scenes with Oliver, and they never did them film because there's no financing. The guy who they kept Oliver kept saying Muffin, but the guy's name was Miffin. He was a producer, some guy who was promising them to do a film, and no financing, so they weren't able to do it. And so that this definitely was something that he was doing just to keep his mind occupied, and with the feeling of Oliver's still alive, and they're going to do these comedy skits later on and stuff. But yeah, my overall the thought of the film is that it was a brilliant piece of work, amazing storytelling. The acting was excellent, just incredibly superb. Everybody who's involved in this film should be proud of themselves. It's a piece of film that definitely is going to be regarded as a classic, years down the road, and one of the best biopics that I've ever watched. And in recent years, surprisingly, I've seen only a few that really were authentic, and they really touched on the lives of the people that they were portraying. There's one coming up now soon called Judy, which is about pretty much like this, where it's the last few years of her life, and I'm looking forward to that. So those of you who stopped by and checked out this video, I thank you very much. I appreciate it. And in closing, and as always, take care.